Hello, welcome all of you to attend our presentation entitled Translators Intercultural Communicative Competence in Translation Quality Assessment, a Perspective from Functionalism, authored by Nguyen Minh Tri, a master candidate from Edith University, and Dr. Trang and the lecturers at English Department of Human University of Education in the ninth International Conference of OpenTESOL. And in the first one, I want to introduce my topic for today. And you may know the translation can be considered a bridge to convey the messages of the author from the short language through the target language. However, nowadays we have different means of communication, not only just translation. Therefore, translation will play a very important role in conveying the message or the intention of the author from the short language to the target language. Therefore, translation quality assessment is an integral component to evaluate the broadness and suitability of the text between cultures. However, is it inevitable that translation had to confront with non-equivalence between two languages? That's called the constraint in linguistic expression to prevent the translator to sensibly choose the most suitable version. Therefore, translator had a certain difficulty to understand the contextualized target text in a broadest manner. Therefore, this paper aimed to address the significance of translators, intercultural communicative competence, interaction quality assessment from the insights of functionalism. From this perspective, we try to analyze the use of translation in reality with the considerations of its quality assessment based on the perspective of functionalism to see intercultural communicative competence as an integral part to consider the identities or the characteristics of the culture that may shape or may orient the ways the translator will choose the version for translation. The next one is intercultural communication competence in translation. And you may know the text is supposed to perform specific function in the short language and the target language. But when it comes to conceptualization of translation competence, you may have to think about the translator duty to mediate and transpose the text into an appropriate forms in the target language and culture without disturbing the intended function. However, the text received by the readers who possess different standards of social norms, beliefs, and values. So we think about how can a translator convey successfully what the author from the short language wants to convey or want to deliver to the reader. But the target readers in other languages may have different standards of understanding. So how can we think about this one? And as a result, the student generator need to equip themselves with the understandings of cultural differences to improve their ICC with the knowledge of translation strategies in order to handle translation problems effectively. Therefore, the ICC play very important roles for reservice translators. So we now mention some types of challenges of cultural translation. The first one we think about the linguistic problems is noticeable that a language has a distinct grammatical system, including syntax and morphology. People usually refer grammar to rules. However, the rules are not fixed as languages evolve over time. As a case in point, English has tenses with are not grammatically expressed in Vietnamese. For example, if we say, okay, I have my breakfast at 8 a.m. and I have already had my breakfast can be translated similarly in Vietnamese. Moreover, the reflected tense in the center I'm going to school bye today, and I'm going to the zoo tomorrow cannot just be translated using the words only đang like the present continuous tense in Vietnamese. It's impossible. The second one is about the cultural transference problems. Cultural transference can cause challenges to translators as many words have different meaning in different languages and cultures. For example, the word uncles in English just had a very simple meaning, but the word uncles in Vietnamese context has several types of meaning to refer to people with different roles and relationship and sibling with your parents. The next one is the culture-specific words, and these items are the concept that exist in a certain culture. Like we have some word like đậu or bean, it's actually quite typical. Or like bánh chưng, and we commonly translate bánh chưng in the sticky rice cake, but it cannot convey the sense that we have in Vietnamese culture. The next one is idiom and verbs are quite typical for the target culture that we need to have a certain levels of cognition toward them to understand. And we need to understand the types of characteristics or identity of that culture to successfully compare the similarity and differences between culture. The next part is about the generation quality assessment and intercultural cognitive competence. And in this paper, we adopt the model by revisited model by House. It's revised from the previous versions by House 2015 with the functionalism approach. And it's commonly when we talk about generation, we think about word by word generation, we think about framework generation. And in this model, the subtext and target language tests compare on three levels of language. Text register including three components of field, tenor, and mode, and genre. The house models based on this see developed the scheme for generation quality assessment were originally developed in 1997 and later on revised in 2015. And its framework of functionalism to put emphasis on the real-world purpose of a rather than the forms of regression. The former models concentrate on textual level to add equivalent in terms of medical structures and physical research. And in this one, it tried to introduce another term, and we call the cultural filter to it's actually introduced to convey the generation evaluation and to signify the importance of cultural awareness and intercultural competence of generator, a possession of cultural sensitivity to identify the gap between the short language text and the target language text. And this idea has strengthened the need for generator in terms of intercultural communicative competence and to ensure the probabilities of acceptance of these generated versions. And it can ensure the success of generation. And actually, the success of generation not limited to the expression in the target language, but also it depends on the possibilities of conveying the intended messages of the authors with a close emotional and ideological performance. And for both elocutionary or perlocutionary speech are actually taken into consideration to transfer the purpose and put the generated text into a real or more authentic version of situation. And based on this understanding, we have certain implication for combining intercultural cognitive competence with the functionalism in house models of generators quality assessment. And the lectures the intercultural cognitive competence may lead to generator subjectivity in examining the generation based on personal assumption and previous exposure rather than understanding the audience's shoes. Because when we use the house framework, we can compare the short text and the target language text. And if you want to compare successfully, we need to have the ICC. And the narrator should improve their linguistic competence. Then some cultural specifically items such as idioms, proverbs, or figures of speech qualified intercultural awareness to mitigate the dependence on the short language to pay more attention to the target language adaptability. And the third one is intercultural communicative competence require mandatory for translator in translation quality assessment to critically opt for the broadness preference from the short text. And it's trying to enhance the personal cultural sensitivity and exposure to fully understand the target language identity. Therefore, the generators, if they want to be successful in their expertise, they need to have the ICC or the intercultural community competence to successfully determine and assess their choice, to determine the appropriateness of their choice of the words or the expression in the target language. In conclusion, the mastery is a function of strength between the short language and target language quite contribute to ensure the high degrees of effectiveness in translation, rather than we just focus on the form, the lexical resource, or the grammar only. And translation quality assessment at the ICC as a chart to determine the appropriateness of a translated text in the target language. Okay, and thank for your time for your attendance in our presentation. If you have any question, you can email us or contact us later on. Thank you for your time and see you.